10x your service design offering with Smaply. Take 20% off any order with This Is HCD 20 off. Let's superpower you and your design team's potential. Sign up at smaply.app. Enjoy the episode from your friends at Smaply, helping support This Is HCD podcast.
Hey folks, and welcome to another episode of This Is HCD. Today on the show we have a very special guest, Mollie of Irish with Mollie Instagram fame. Now Mollie is from Dublin and has been on a mission to spread the love of my native language, Irish, or as we say in Ireland, Gaeilge. Now, to give you a very brief background on our history in Ireland, we spoke Irish up until the British rule, and it wasn't until the early 1900s in 1916 that we regained our independence, but we never regained our native tongue fully. Now, it's now spoken only in parts in Ireland, and even though it is mandatory in schools, many in my generation really had little or no appreciation of its beauty. Now, Mollie's gifted me access to her courses, and I'm about to start taking her courses, so who knows, you might start to hear me weave a few words here and there into the podcast. So why is this important and fitting for This Is HCD? Well, hear me out. It struck me one day as I was scrolling through Instagram that Mollie was a fantastic example of what I refer to on this podcast as a change maker. She saw a problem with how Irish is being taught and believes that we as adults still have the power to reintroduce this language. So she did something about it. She is making a huge difference with over 120,000 subscribers to her on Instagram, and with no signs of this slowing down. I really wanted to chat a little bit more openly about what is behind all of this and what we can learn as change makers and reintroduce it into our own practice. It's a cracking episode, so let's jump straight in.
You're more than able to speak, Mollie. I feel like I know you at this stage, which is that a problem with social media where you feel like you know someone when you don't really know them. But
I get you.
I've been following you for probably about a year, I suppose, online, and I was intrigued about a new use of Instagram and how to introduce people to the Irish language. And I can see people from all over the world learning about our wonderful native tongue. But I guess why I'm really interested in this is the kind of the retention of people's cultures and how the proliferation of social media and Netflix and all of these things, you're seeing a dilution of native tongues and a kind of a westernized language of English. So when we were in Australia, we used to hear children in Australia with kind of an American twang. They used to say things like, it was awesome, and words that started to come back, and I could see it in Ireland as well. So maybe start off, we'll have a little chat and tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from and what you do.
Yeah, so it's Misha Mollie. I'm Mollie. I'm from
Okay.
Dublin, and I'm an online Irish teacher. I have an Instagram account called Irish with Mollie, which I set up
Yeah.
about a year ago.
Right.
And I've been teaching online for about 10 years, more or less. And I'm an English teacher, Irish teacher, and dance teacher. But now pretty much all my energy is channeled into keeping our wonderful language alive, growing the
Yeah.
community, creating content, materials, doing webinars, and making these reels where I get to indulge my dork and just go deep into like Irish mythology and etymology and, really unearth the links between Hiberno English and how we speak English in Ireland and its
Yeah.
link with our native language. So it's been a really beautiful and fulfilling journey. I never imagined I'd be an Irish teacher. Everyone
Yeah.
kind of seemed to hate their Irish teacher. And I get a lot of, oh, if you were my Irish teacher at school, I'd probably still be there, haha. Or like, I'd be fluent in Irish. And I'm like, you can start now. The thing is,
Yeah.
people associate Irish with school and with a subject, not with a living language.
Yeah.
And people really believe, oh, I would have learned Irish, as if Irish learning stops at age 18 because the point
Yeah.
of it was for the Leaving Cert, which
Yeah.
is something I'd like to just
Yeah. Challenge. It's
blast
that
apart, yeah.
it's true. Like it was kind of drilled into us as kids to kind of learn this stuff, and we were like, I just didn't have, I didn't understand it because I was like, why am
Mm,
I learning this? We speak English, and
exactly.
all the other lessons were done through English as well. So it was like I have to turn on a part of my brain that I just didn't really want to turn on. I didn't see the purpose of it, like, you know.
I get you.
Um,
Yeah.
it's interesting that there has been a revival when we were in school. Like, I'm giving my age away here. I'm 43. Everyone, I don't really hide my age, but I remember TG Cahir came on, which is a channel in Ireland. It would have been in '95 or '96, and we were like, all these TV shows are in Irish, and it was kind of like, oh, they're being overdubbed, and it definitely helped just having it on in the background and listening to it. And it's a similar thing that I see happening with what you're doing on Instagram. I see you're given bite-sized pieces of content, um, and people are able to learn pretty much asynchronously. But what I want to understand, first of all, before we get into all the good stuff, is why is this so interesting to you?
It's a great question. Um, it's funny because,
What happened?
yeah, you know how things make sense backwards? You don't really, well, I'm not a person who plans my life going forward. I do believe in visualization and really being grateful for what you want to have before
Mm,
you actually achieve it. But it makes sense backwards when I think I have always loved language and communication. And I studied English studies.
mm,
And I think one of my biggest goals in life was to travel. And I sailed
yeah.
around the world about 6 years ago on a UN sponsored NGO cruise ship called the Peace Boat.
What?
And it is as magical as it sounds. And there were about 900 Japanese students. And I thought they were of university going age. You know, I was 25. They were all in their mid to late 80s. And I would actually have to like help them into the cabin for my classroom. And I was teaching Zumba and English. And when they figured out, oh, she's Irish, they were like, let's do Irish dancing. So we did the Walls of Limerick. We practiced every day. And I taught them a bit of Irish as well. And
Yeah,
their mindset is just phenomenal. Like
yeah,
they're so committed, really put in the time, very open minded about, you know, how possible things are and how it just takes patience and perseverance. So that was a real turning point for me in realizing what I wanted to do with my life. I had kind of fulfilled one of my biggest goals. I traveled a lot during my early 20s. And then I thought, what do I want to do next with my time?
mm,
You know, and I think being away from Ireland, having this pride in where I'm from and how beautiful and magical the language is and the culture and how people appreciate that and respect it around the world. I was like, I want to teach our native language. You know, my grandmother at that stage was in her 90s and we were really close and I would call her and it was difficult for her to hear me speaking English on the phone. But if I switched to Irish, she could
right.
have a full conversation.
Yeah,
And she didn't really have Alzheimer's or dementia or anything, but she would be a bit forgetful and
yeah,
her hearing was terrible. But somehow Irish just kind of woke her up.
yeah.
And it was always her dream to see me on TV. So in a
Wow.
way, I'm living her dream now, you know, Instagram. No, I'm on
Yeah.
a screen anyway. But
So,
yeah, I had an Irish teacher. I went to an all girls school. So he was one of the only men in the building and everyone fancied him. And he was okay, Mr. Hackett. And he was a nice guy, but you know, we asked him, why did you go into teaching? And he said,
yeah,
June, July,
yeah,
and August, girls. June, July, and August. So I don't know if he was there for the Irish teaching, but everyone went to the Gaeltacht basically or got grinds because there wasn't a lot of understanding going on in school, like many Irish schools.
you're
And
probably
at the
drooling.
Gaeltacht, I really connected with the language. I thought, you know, first of all, there were boys there, and coming from an all girls school, that was quite exciting. And you'd be going to the Cayley and playing football and going to the beach, all through Irish. But I went to a very strict one, so they actually kicked me out. I was 13 years old
Right,
and I spoke one sentence in English, and they sent me home on the train with two
right.
lads who'd been drinking on the beach. And I was like, how am I being treated like a
That's why
criminal
you
when
get
they're,
sent home.
yeah.
Yeah, and they'd be drinking. I do remember that whole thing. I never went to the Gaeltacht, but I remember hearing people that had been, kicked out for speaking English, like, because it was pretty strict. You had to speak Irish when you were there, like.
Yeah.
So you studied English though in university. You were talking about beforehand.
Mm.
What was it about English that you mentioned that you found it quite unfulfilling?
Yeah. So I think I had always enjoyed reading. I was an avid reader as a child. I love writing, creative writing. And then after my English degree, teaching English abroad was a great option because it let me travel.
Yeah,
And I loved teaching. I still do. I love teaching so much. But I think teaching English made me kind of reflect on the utility of it, how these people would come to me kind of desperate to learn English because they had to, because English is
yeah,
the lingua franca, because, as a commercial language, I really thought their English was killing other languages. English
mm,
has usurped other languages. And I didn't like the role I played in that, especially as an Irish person. And I just
mm,
thought, why can't I apply the skills I've learned on how to teach a language logically and really clearly to the Irish language? Because Irish isn't
yeah.
really taught in a patterned, logical way. People feel
No,
like they're dragged up, like, okay, and now you need to write an essay about social problems in your area, but you don't really understand how to use the past tense.
yeah, yeah. I found it really difficult, to be honest. Like Irish, because I'd handled French, but when it came to the Irish, I was like, okay, this is back to front, and it was really difficult. Like. You mentioned there something that was really interesting about English killing languages.
Hmm.
So, talk to me what you know about that.
So, languages are dying every day around the world. And
Yeah.
it is an effect of globalization and of focusing mostly on giving this dominance to English. And
Mm,
for example, Irish is listed as definitely endangered. The next step
yeah,
is severely, then critically, then dead. So when you look at Irish from a perspective of trying to invigorate the language and trying to bring it back, we look at other countries like Wales, the Basque Country, um, even New Zealand with Maori, and see how effective they've been in revitalizing the language. So something needs to happen in Ireland, with
yeah,
Irish. Like I was thinking before our call, actually, how broken the curriculum is in Ireland, that
yeah,
children are learning poems and prose for their exams and they don't really understand them. And I thought if that time was spent effectively teaching children to embrace and enjoy the language and understand the language, they themselves would be able to write poems better or more meaningful to them, more
yeah,
relevant by the age of 18, because they'd be fluent. So then
yeah,
it gives people this mindset and this misconception that Irish is really difficult and impossible. But it's not the
mm,
case at all. The more I delve into Irish, I realize it's so satisfyingly consistent. For example, it only has 11 irregular verbs. English has about 220.
yeah,
It only has, it doesn't have a word for yes or no. We answer with the verb. It's got this beautiful rhythmic musical quality. And especially if you're growing up in Ireland, it'll be easier to learn because we're basically speaking Irish using English words.
yeah. But what is it about? And this is a kind of a rhetorical question in some ways. But what is it about retaining the language that's so important? How does that integrate with our culture?
I think it's that Ireland has a relatively new independence, and
Mm,
Ireland has been kind of, obviously oppressed and been through the wars, etc. And maybe now is a time to emerge in this strength of who are we and what is Irishness,
yeah,
because we have a booming tech industry, fantastic scientists, pretty strong educational sector, tourism industry. And yet the Irish are seen as kind of drunken louts, funny, but maybe our culture is tied up with leprechauns and, you know,
to a certain
Paddy's
amount.
Day.
Yeah,
And I think if we really harness the power of the language, that's what's really given Ireland its music and its literature.
Its identity. I mean, like, we're all over the world at the moment with, Sinead O'Connor passing,
Yeah.
and, she was extremely passionate about her Irishness. I don't know what her perspective was on the Irish language, but I think she sung a couple of songs off Gaeilge,
Yeah.
in her career. So I guess the retention of the language and its kind of correlation to our identity, we're aware of that. But it was actually, I was speaking to my next door neighbor there a couple of months ago, and he explained to me that it was his dad was alive at the time of our independence. When you put it into the context of generations, you kind of go, okay. So it's so new, and we're still kind of processing what that means. Like, and they say we only got back on our feet in the 60s in Ireland.
Yeah.
But I think in some ways we're still only getting back on our feet. We still haven't found what it means to be Irish. We lost an awful lot during those 800 years when the British ruled us,
Hmm.
We're at a crucial point, is what I'm hearing from you, and what we do next. So if you imagine that I had a magic wand, it's not a magic wand, it's a pen. But if I was able to go boom and make you, I don't know what the Irish is for the feminine of Taoiseach. Do you know?
Still Taoiseach. Yeah, chief.
Taoiseach.
Yeah.
So you're Taoiseach of Ireland, and everyone is really happy. Mollie's going to be running the country. What would you do?
So
Everyone, I need to get used to this. Mollie's running the country now. Listen up. What would you do to
well,
introduce more Irish?
I think the main thing is a shift in perspective and mindset. The method is there for learning Irish. I've designed this way that people really can learn the language. And it's not as difficult as everyone thought. But the major overhaul would be in how we think about the language and how we accept
Yeah,
it and embrace it. So I would do a lot of work into working through the shame and fear and resentment that people hold on to. We might be the only country in the world that has been traumatized by learning our own language.
yeah,
So making it so that mistakes are normal. You're only going to get it wrong before you get it right. Everyone just working through that kind of who cares? Like,
yeah.
do we need to be fluent before we start speaking? No, you
No.
can just even add "gra more," big love at the end of your messages. You can write your shopping list in Irish and look up the word and then forget it and look it up again and forget it.
Yeah,
I would say, bringing bilingualism into schools, making it so that sport is through Irish, things that are really fun and positive, and so children have this association, and parents too.
yeah,
And doing away with exams. I think exams come from this kind of factory worker mentality that we're having to test you because to
yeah.
work out whether you
Command and control.
learned something, instead of learning something should be the proof should be being able to spontaneously, creatively, confidently speak, even if you're
Yeah,
making mistakes. So it's amazing how we're scripted in Irish, basically.
yeah.
If someone asks a question that you haven't prepared for, it's like, just anxiety overload instead
Oh,
of understanding the structures. And it's very
yeah. The
doable.
basic, the foundations. Like,
Yes.
I couldn't tell you what my foundations in Irish were. It was probably counting like to 10, and
Yeah.
even I haven't done it since I left school, like, because I was living in Australia and so forth. The only time I really leaned into it was when I was traveling with other Irish people, and we might see a Colleen Holan, which is
Yes.
a good-looking girl, and we were like, Dea Ganesh. I don't even know if that's right, but they would get the point across, and I was like, look over there,
Yes.
Miss Colleen Holan, and they'd be like, oh, okay, girl and nice. So we'd be like, okay, it was beneficial at that point. But I'm keen to learn about more. The killing of the English language being used to, maybe not intentionally, to kill languages. But are there other countries in the world that are at the same level as us? What they've been done to reinvigorate the language and its adoption?
Hmm.
You mentioned Maui,
Yeah.
um, Maori. Sorry, I think I'm saying I think it's Moffy, actually, isn't it the proper term? Because
Hmm.
people in New Zealand are going to send me an email now, and they're like, Gerry,
Oh.
this is how you say it. I'm so sorry. But what are they doing to reinvigorate the language?
I think the major difference is you can see in Catalonia and places like that, that they make it more useful in a way that you need the language to get into certain government positions and public service kind of jobs, and that it's actually used in daily life. That people who work in the post office, the guards, teachers, nurses, all use the language, and there's a place for that. It's not, in a way, seen as such a minority language. For example, I lived in the Basque Country, and there, most of the kids go to school, and it's just Basque the whole day. And then they might speak Spanish with their parents at home.
Right.
And a lot of their games are really well preserved, like pelota,
Mm.
I think it's called. And it's just made more, it's normalized and it's integrated into
Yeah.
their life, and it's a real pride thing. And I don't know why it's
You
been
know,
the
I was,
opposite in Ireland.
yeah.
You know,
I
I
mean,
think people
it's
just
in
have
all our
bad memories.
signposts. I
Yeah,
mean, in some ways, like the Irish government, if there were a third person on this call, they'd say, well, we've introduced it on all the signposts. We give alternate languages, English on one side, Irish on another. You can apply for government services in our native language and ATM functions. I'm thinking off the top of my head, you can do it as Gaeilge. Um, but yet it still seems to be on the decline. And that's
exactly.
kind
And I
of,
see policies that are like, oh, we'll protect the Gaeltachts at all costs, and we'll protect this and that and preserve this. But I think the only time it's going to change is when Irish people feel okay with someone saying to them, "An bhfuil Gaeilge agat? Have you got Irish?" And they can say "tá" or "níl" or "cúpla focal," yes, or, well, I do, I don't, a couple of
yeah,
words, and not have this panic,
yeah,
because it's so common that you'd say to someone, "Oh, have you any Irish?" And they're like, "Oh, sure, I wouldn't have a word of Irish. I I only learned it for 14 years at school." And even Irish teachers themselves. I went to an event and I heard it was an embassy event, and there was this woman there who had taught Irish for years. And I was a bit like, okay, she's going to speak Irish to me. And even I have that kind of bum, you know, what's going to happen
yeah.
here? And then she grabs me by the arm and she says, "Molly, don't you dare speak a word of Irish to me."
Really?
She was like, "I'm out of
And
practice. I haven't spoken Irish in years." And I was like, okay, but where's
why not?
the
You have
Yeah,
to start
it's a
somewhere.
real mindset thing,
It's
100%.
like a jam. If you look at musicians, they get up and they just start to jam and play, and
Yeah,
it's that mindset of being comfortable. You're in a safe environment to try again.
exactly. And I teach so many international students, and they just have a very different approach. They're like, "Hi guys, just joined the course. Maybe you've been here since last September, but I'll catch up in a few weeks. I'm just on module 2."
Yeah,
Very open, very cheerful about it, very
yeah,
proactive, and they don't mind making mistakes. They don't apologize for
yeah.
them. It's just, of course I'm making mistakes. I'm a learner. Everyone does.
Do you think that's something to do with the fact that we hold a version of our own identity, and we probably know deep down we should?
Yeah.
Whereas if you're not from that perspective, if you're like, say, French trying to learn Irish, you're like, I know I'm going to be bad. I'm just learning a new thing. Whereas, do you think there's
Yeah.
something in that?
That's a really good point. I think a lot of Irish people have that, or maybe they move abroad and they realize, wow, I learned Swedish in 2 years. How do I not know my native language?
Yeah. So how hard is it? Come on, Molly, you've got me interested. I mean, all these Instagram
Yeah.
posts. You even spoke about Ali G the other day.
Yes.
You're speaking the language of the young people, and I say the young people. That's me, Boyaka Shah. So let's talk about that, because I remember hearing years ago when Ali G, when I was in school, they were like, "There's a correlation between that phrase and Os Gaeilge." Tell us that
Yeah.
story. That's a great
That
one.
it comes, yeah. So you remember Ali G saying Buyakasha, and it's from Jamaican patois. And
Yeah,
apparently it comes from Buetas Legia, thanks be to
yeah,
God. And the meaning is the same. He's saying it kind of like praise be, good life, good
yes,
stuff. And Cromwell sent thousands of Irish indentured servants to the Caribbean, and,
Jamaica.
and they were
Yeah,
working
the West
alongside
Indies.
black slaves. and they
Yeah.
apparently taught them a lot of Irish. Another one would be Irie, the verb in Irish to mean get up or rise. And it can be connected to so many different collocations, like, to succeed, to give up, and loads of different things. And they still use it in Jamaican patois. They say Irie.
Wow. It's crazy how language can permeate each other, isn't it? Really, like
Hmm.
they can influence so
Yeah.
many different things. I mean, we still like in Australia, most people would be familiar with the phrase "we're going to have the crack,"
Yeah.
and it's a very Irish thing. And do you know where that comes from? I know it's obviously Irish, but how has it permeated
Well,
all these other cultures?
this one is something we probably don't want to think about, but the crack apparently comes from the word crack, CRAK, coming from Middle English.
Oh no,
Yeah, but we changed the spelling.
yeah. So it's got its roots in English.
Yeah, I think it meant racket or kind of hubbub, kind of hustle and bustle,
Yeah,
a sound or
it
an
kind of makes
atmosphere.
sense.
But we
Do
made
you
the
know,
crack, you know.
as I'm speaking to you, Susie Dent on
Yeah,
Countdown, you are the Susie Dent to Irish that
thank
she is
you.
to English. It's as I'm talking about, I think I can throw anything out to you and you're going to be able to give me a
I
response.
appreciate that. I love Susie Dent, and a few people have said that to me, and I would love, to have been on Countdown. Maybe I'll start a countdown in Irish.
Yeah. Did
Wouldn't
it,
that be
did it,
fun?
did it, do. Yeah, but you need Sean Locke. I only watched the Countdown, the Cats version of Countdown. Have you seen that with Sean Locke and
Don't think so.
John Richardson? It's all these comedians who do it. Jimmy Carr fronts it. It's not. You can check it out on YouTube. It's fantastic. But so let's talk about what you're doing. Like so
Mhm.
you do these Instagram posts probably daily, is it?
Yeah. So I do a reel every second day and a post with like 10 flashcards, alternating them.
How
So
do you do all of this?
it's a lot of work, to be honest, but
Yeah,
it's so worthwhile. I absolutely love it. I'm learning a lot about, the algorithm and how to grab people's attention and the whole storytelling aspect of it.
mm,
And I love deep diving into the etymology and kind of weaving in the folklore. And
mm,
it's amazing. It's really heartwarming to see how people react to that. People from
yeah,
all over the world who say, "Oh, my granddad used to say that." Or people give me a lot of
yeah,
ideas, to be fair. They'll write me a DM and they'll go, "Do you ever hear this phrase?" My aunts always say this. And then I'll start researching it and be like, wow, that's so
yeah.
special that that has carried on for generations.
Do you ever hear of the phrase "scunty bunty"?
No,
No, that's one of an old lady used to
thanks.
call me her little scunty bunty, and I never
Skunty
knew what it
bunty.
meant. And my mom said she thought it might have been something to do with Irish. Anyway,
I'll
come
look
here, you
into
little
it. Yeah.
scunty bunty. And I was like, what? And I was only when I get older. Like she also used to call me the F word. Like, you're a little F. And it's only years later that I was like, well, probably not appropriate. But the scunty bunty one was always, made me kind of ponder what she meant. She's long gone, unfortunately, to ask her. But there's probably loads of those phrases from the older
Yeah.
generations that are being passed down, and we're somewhat confused. Do you have any other ones that you have from from your reels that you're able to recount for us?
Yeah. For example, in Liverpool, people call it the Republic of Liverpool because there's so many Irish
Yeah,
there.
so many
And they
Irish over
say,
there.
"Tara chuck." And Tara comes from Tuair Ada, meaning take care.
Right.
And even chuck, kind of like chicken, in Australia, you'll hear this a lot as well.
Yeah.
Comes from apparently TIOC, chuck, that Irish farmers would call their chickens saying chuck chuck, and it would be something to
Ah,
kind of, yeah,
come here,
mimic.
come here, come here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly,
That's
because Chucky
that's
would be the future
crazy.
tense of to come. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Because like it is very popular in Australia, like especially with people who are true blue, as they say in Sydney and everywhere else. They're like, "Can I check?"
Ah.
It's fascinating to hear that, So you have a different style of learning.
Mhm.
How does that differ to what the general curriculum does in Ireland to teach Irish?
Um, I
What are you
think
doing? You doing dances?
From
Because you mentioned do dances as well.
to be honest, I know there are so many talented and brilliant teachers, but I think
Yeah,
working with the curriculum like that really doesn't help. So, what I love to do is kind of start with the lead in, like something memorable, something that you can hang on and relate to and connect with. So, a story about, let's say if you've an Irish mammy or daddy, you've probably heard them say, "Why have you a puss on you? Get that puss off your face," if you're
yeah, yeah.
being really grumpy. And then everyone can kind of laugh at it or relate to it and go, "Oh, yeah, I've heard that." Why? Because puss comes from a pouted mouth in Irish. And then you might hear, something else related to mouth. So everything is kind of together. For example, like Irish has faded off our tongues, but we're going to gobble it back up. Gobble comes from gub, beak,
Right.
dún the gob, shut your beak or
Doing the
shut your
cup.
mouth.
Yeah, yeah,
So it's kind of linking them so that you remember them better. I remember having
yeah,
a student who said he was learning weather items vocabulary in Irish, and gamala is cloudy. And he
yeah.
was wondering, how should I remember this? Well, scam, Allah. So Allah in the skies is scamming the earth with the clouds. So this is a
Right.
really effective learning tool, and I think also letting students sit in their discomfort for a moment and kind of stretch their minds and try to nearly struggle through to the answer instead of giving it to
Yeah,
them. There's a lot of this in school where people are fed information. This is the correct answer instead of what do you think? Or
yeah.
work it out. Like, how cool would that be if etymology was more of a subject in schools? Like, it's fascinating.
Absolutely. Within design, we talk about this. It's an academic term. It's called the first shitty draft, where you just get something done. Like I think Ernest Hemingway said the hardest part of writing is just that blank page, and it's so true. It's you just get something to the point of where you can actually critique it and provide feedback. Whereas if you stare at that blank page and you don't attempt, you're just still. So you can't steer a parked car is the other way of looking at it, and it's just about giving it a go and being willing to be poor
Hmm.
is kind of what I'm hearing through that, like, So Molly, you've got this online school. I'm on the website here at the
Yeah.
moment. What does it look like when people sign up? Like, I'd love to give people an introduction
Yeah.
to what you offer.
So it's called irishwithmolly.com.
Yeah,
And I have two courses. So one is for beginners, perfect
yeah,
for people starting from scratch or maybe refreshing their Irish after years. Maybe they want to become a primary school teacher or they're a parent of a kid in a Gaeilge school. And it brings
yeah,
you through the absolute basics of the language. So I've designed this kind of features of the language module that a lot of people are like, God, I never knew that, despite
yeah,
maybe even being at intermediate level. And then it brings you through the tenses, different vocabulary. So there's about 55 structured videos over
right,
18 hours. So it's all self
okay,
paced. You can learn wherever, whenever suits you. There is over 800 exercises, over 100 quizzes, downloadable PDFs, my daily support, an open Zoom room. So we have a 24/7 Zoom room to converse. And I was on it last night with a few people. It was
So how
hilarious.
does
It
that
was
work?
Cork versus Dublin. So people from all over the world. I've over 2,000 students on it now, and people are just logging in from everywhere, from Alaska, New Zealand, Morocco. It's incredible to feel this appetite for Irish. Then there's an intermediate course.
Well, what's the live Zoom?
Another,
I've never heard of a live Zoom room.
yeah. So it's open constantly. People are online right now. We also have a Telegram group, one for beginners, one for intermediates, and just sharing, cúpla focal, maybe a couple of words about their day or asking questions, sharing films in Irish and books. So it's a great way for people to feel part of something and to
Yeah,
know I'm not alone. Everyone's trying their best. And, you know, the beauty of it is there's lifetime access as well. So it's not like you have to finish by this deadline or
yeah,
you'll get kicked out of the course or anything like that. I've learned my lesson.
awesome.
So it's yeah, it's just been a really beautiful kind of burgeoning community that fills me with a lot of joy. It feels like
Yeah,
friends. Everyone is there
you get to
enjoying
know people.
themselves and adding to the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, keep doing what you're doing, Molly, because it's been fascinating watching your channel grow. I'm just looking at now, you've got 125,000 followers on Instagram. Is that right?
About that, yeah,
Some,
I think,
something like that. I think more than across the two channels.
yeah, yeah,
You're on TikTok as well, like, which
yeah.
is just insane. Like, anyone who's got more than, I've got 150 people on Instagram, my personal Instagram, and I'm like, that's too many.
Yeah. I know, it's mind-boggling sometimes when people recognize me. I'm like, "Whoa, yeah, you
So if
see
you
my
have that
face
many,
every day."
I'd say you could definitely be stopped in the street.
Yeah, it has happened. Even in
Yeah,
Austria, to be honest, I was in the middle of the Austrian Alps, and the guy putting on my
really?
ski boots said, "Do you teach Irish online?" And I was like, "Yeah."
No way.
It was weird.
That is
Yeah.
so cool. And I noticed when a good friend and someone who's been on the podcast, Mark Geary, follows you as well. Like, and there's been a lot of people, like I know Marketa Glova as well follows you on Instagram as well. So there's a lot of people interested in what it means to be Irish
Mhm.
who are popular amongst the creative community in Ireland, following and learning. And I think it's really powerful to see other people in that sort of position in Irish culture to support what you're doing, because there's not
Yeah.
too many other people doing it. Like, and it's coming from the heart. That's the bit that comes through. It's not a
Mhm.
case of you, like, you see a niche in the market, you're like, "I'm gonna
Yeah.
capitalize on this." This is something you're really passionate about. So I'm
Yeah.
delighted to have you and direct people towards the work that you're doing, Molly.
Thanks a million,
So
Gerry.
no worries. If people want to reach out to you, what's the best way for people to do that?
Yeah, so Irish with Mollie on Instagram or TikTok, and irishwithmollie@gmail.com if you want to send me an email, or the website is irishwithmollie.com.
Okay, awesome. Listen, thanks so much for your time.
Cheers. Slán.
Slán go fóill.